Welcome back to Architect Live. My name is Stephen Chung, and Architect Live is brought to you by Hanley Wood, as always. Now, the next panel is a power-packed panel of editors from Architect Magazine. You like that? Power-packed panel. Before they begin, I would like to also mention we've got some great programming today. Even though it's our last day, we still have some great things, including the Residential Design Awards, moderated by Katie Gerfen, coming up next. And after that, we've got an interview with Women in Architecture with Carol Ross Barney. She's a fantastic Chicago architect, also by Katie Gerfen. And finally, our final segment of the convention will be Houses for All Regions. Members of AIA's Custom Residential Architects Network will discuss their new book featuring a wide range of designs from 36 custom residential architects. So you will want to watch this panel. If you're not here and you're somewhere else, you can watch it streaming at aia.bob.tv. Sorry, aia.bob.tv. And I mention that because if you want your work published as an architect, you have to talk to these guys, and especially Ned Kramer. Ned, do you mind if I give them your email and your cell phone?
That would be terrific. You could also let them know the scale of bribe relative to the opportunity of publishing.
Okay, with that, I'll let you guys take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen. So, hi, I'm Ned Kramer, the editor-in-chief of Architect Magazine, and I'm joined by three of my fearless editor colleagues, Wanda Lau.
Hi. Just trying to introduce myself?
Yeah,
okay,
please.
Great.
Sorry, I just kind of dropped that on you.
No worries. I'm the senior editor of technology and products at Architect Magazine, along with other Hanley Wood publications.
So I'm Eric Wills. I'm a senior editor, and I do a lot of the feature stories.
And I'm Katie Gerfen. I'm the executive editor for design coverage at Architect Magazine, and I also work with Residential Architect Magazine.
Well, welcome, everyone. And this is a great opportunity because it's really an opportunity to talk about ourselves, which, you know, is way more interesting than talking about architecture, right? No. So let's start with you, Katie, because you're probably the most eagerly sought after editor on our team. Being responsible for all of our building coverage, all of our building features. What is your preferred way to be approached? Like, what's a really good way to build a relationship with Katie Gerfen and get your work published?
Well, you know,
aside from bribery.
Well, aside from bribery, damn it. It's actually interesting because I rely less and less on formal press releases and information that comes sort of in the pretty package at this point. It's always lovely to get. You can see the care that's put into it. But with the way that information is moving at such a fast pace, a heads up about projects that are going on in your firm a few months from when they're done with construction is actually super helpful. And even just a couple of shots from the construction site, like iPhone snaps, is a great way to sort of pique my interest. You know, a little information via email about what's going on with the project, what your objectives are, and some, like I said, some construction snaps, and also when completed, the finished photography so that we can take a look at the beautiful project.
Snail mail?
I will admit I probably check my mailbox once a week.
Okay.
Everything comes in via email at this point. And that's the best way because that means that I can also share it with my fellow editors. So if it comes to me and it's something that might not work for a building feature that I'm looking for, it might be something great from a technology perspective that I can shoot right over to Wanda and she can take a look for another type of story opportunity.
Well, and you make a really good point there. You hinted something that maybe a lot of architects aren't aware of, which is that, you know, my sense is architects, you know, always are gunning, understandably, for the big building feature. They want to show off their hard work and their great ideas. But there are a myriad of ways to get yourself published and to get recognition for your work, not just in the building feature. And Wanda, I think your technology coverage is a great example of that. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you approach technology coverage, the sections of the magazine and the website that address those issues?
Sure. I can talk about technology as well as products too. Those are two ways to get into the magazine that I kind of oversee. So in terms of technology, a lot of more and more firms are at least approaching architectural and building research, which I find fascinating. So again, if you give me a heads up of the kind of work that you're doing and how it's innovative and different from existing work that's been done, along with maybe low-res images of some of the work you have, some of the research findings that you've drawn, and why it makes it stand out and why it should be considered for coverage. Those are some things that I will look at and consider. And I'm always looking for good technology stories that are applicable to architects that have a general large audience and large applications. So that's for technology. And in terms of products, I think just being on top of what we've already covered in products, we cover tons of products. So if your product has been covered already and you approach me again for more coverage, that's probably not going to work. But and you show us that you're on top of what we've shown, and like include again, always images are so important in publishing both online and in print. So if you include that plus a very quick snippet of either why it's different, how other people have used it, how architects have actually found it useful, and some testimonial, I think those are some great venues into capturing our attention.
And are you seeing more product submissions from architects, or is it still traditional kind of building product manufacturers?
It's typically traditionally building product manufacturers, although many manufacturers are also including case studies with architects now. This is how my product was used on a project site. So, and look at, and then seeing it in application really kind of hits it home to other architects on how that product could be used on their projects.
Right, okay, okay. And then Eric, you not only manage the feature coverage, but also programs like the Architect 50, which are pretty amazing opportunities too, right? To get kind of awareness out there.
Yeah, I mean, the Architect 50s, will be published again in September this year, and so they're, the survey is currently out, and so firms are working on that. The one thing I would say is this is very simple advice, but all of us get pitched so much all the time, and by a lot of people who don't seem to be very familiar with the magazine. So it actually is incredibly helpful, when pitching us to have some familiarity and to have read through a number of issues and kind of get a sense of the things that we cover and how we cover them, and that makes it a lot more likely that the way that you target the pitch to us will inspire our interest. And on my end, I don't have a particular beat like Katie does or Wanda does. So a lot of what I'm doing is looking for trends or stories that don't necessarily fit into any of the other categories. So yeah, having some familiarity with the kind of trend stories we do, with the kind of coverage that we do, makes it much more likely that a pitch will rise up, because all of our inboxes are pretty full.
And is there, my sense is, at least in my years as an on-the-ground editor, that the more effort an architect can make to actually cultivate a personal relationship with an editor, kind of the better served they are in terms of having access to getting ideas across or pitching stories. Would you guys find that to be true as well?
I think it's true. I think if you understand that once you pitch an idea, it won't be immediately accepted and published. You understand there's a time frame that has to happen. There has to be some kind of back and forth with our colleagues to see whether this idea is important, and then just good follow through. Like if we say, oh, it's this is something we want to go ahead with, you can't just disappear and not reach out to us ever again, or be timely with your response and any kind of requests we do, because this is nature of publishing schedule is very different.
But I think also, Ned, you're right. The personal relationship is very important because it helps us to know what you all are up to. You guys are our sources. You guys tell us what is important in the industry. You have amazing projects going on, and we don't know that without knowing you and being able to get that information from you. And so when we have a good relationship with a firm, sometimes we call them up for information on a story, use them as a source for something, get advice on how to frame a story. Is this an issue that's affecting your firm? Is this a trend that you're seeing? Is this a technology you're using or a building type that you're seeing more and more in the industry? And that's very helpful for us, but it also means that we just know more about what you're doing. And it sounds very stupid, but we can't publish what we don't know about.
Right.
And sometimes the very interesting projects that I find are because I've had tangential conversations with somebody about that random thing that they're working on that they wouldn't have thought to bring to my attention, but it's actually something that either dovetails with something else that I'm working on or just happens to hit a nerve and be really interesting to me at that moment.
There's a really interesting, Wanda, you talked about kind of the publishing rhythm. Our lives are changing pretty dramatically as the web grows and as social media has emerged. So historically, and I think still it's very much the case that architects and architectural marketing, so to speak, are still very focused on print. And if you do the math, we're able to publish fewer than 50 building projects a year. There just aren't a ton of opportunities in print. And there's a limited set of eyeballs in print. Even though the format is attractive, we are obviously all print heads. We love making a magazine that's a beautiful object, that contains rich information and beautiful projects. But increasingly, my sense is that the web presents a far greater opportunity in many ways to architects. In terms of the reach, you can reach millions instead of 100,000 or so, which is our print circulation. The immediacy of it, and the kind of trade-off is that I think so many architects in the U.S., and I know all of you can speak to this, still think of an agreement in terms of with a media outlet in terms of kind of print exclusivity, and we're not going to agree to have a project published unless it's a print agreement, and those opportunities are so few. You speak about this a great deal, Katie. I know it's sort of the bane of your existence in many ways.
It is the bane of my existence, mostly because I am just selfish and I want to publish more than 50 projects. There are more than 50 projects a year that interest me, that I want to talk about and that I want to get out there. And I love print. I do. That sort of was my first love. But the web gives us so many opportunities, and it's not just that we can publish more, and it's not just that we can publish faster, but we can publish in different and more interesting ways. So we can include video, we can make animated GIFs showing the stacked floor plans so you can see how the building massing comes together. We can do fly-throughs, we can show how systems open and close by placing images together. We can do things in a really fun way that's so much more descriptive. Because if you think about it, we work in a very interesting field. Architecture is all about creating space. It's about creating a sense of place in 3 dimensions. And then we have to take pictures of it, reduce it to 2 dimensions, and present it that way, which is actually kind of hysterical if you think about it. You can't get a full sense of a building. So the web really gives us opportunities to showcase projects in ways that we can't in print. And so it's actually a really kind of interesting and fun frontier that we're working with. And it allows us to play a little bit more, and it allows us to really showcase your guys' work in different ways.
I think of our coverage of Peter Eisman project in Spain, and we were able to actually use a drone. We sent a photographer who used a drone to do a fly around of this really large building complex. We'd never done that before, and the sheer fact that we used a drone and no one died was so exciting to me.
But it's also, how often do you get to see a building from above?
Right.
Especially one like that, which was designed for it. It was
Yes.
designed to be seen from above, but nobody ever gets to experience it that way. And if you do, it's one kind of static image, which is great, but to actually be able to kind of go through and follow the city grid as it was laid out on the roof plane and on that structure is something that we never would be able to do in print.
Now, awards programs are an entirely different animal, because it's ultimately, at the end of the day, not up to us as editors who gets published. And Eric, I know you have spent many hours angsting over which architects to choose for juries for Architect 50. Talk a little bit about your insider knowledge of how those kind of review processes work. What happens when someone submits a portfolio for Architect 50?
Well, we started, so Architect 50, I think this is going to be the 6th year of the program. And every year we've tried to tweak it and make it better. And one of the criticisms we heard about it is that we were judging firms in 3 categories: business, sustainability, and design. And on the design front, initially it was just based, solely on awards. And so a lot of firms said, well, that's, we may have a firm culture that really doesn't value awards. We don't spend time pursuing awards. And so we tweaked the program last year to actually include a portfolio. So every firm puts together 5 projects that they either worked on or completed in the previous calendar year. And last year we put together a panel of judges, which actually included Stephen Chung right there. Thank you, Stephen. And Meryl Elam, and who was our third? John Peterson. And so they did the judging remotely, but it was just a PDF review. So each firm put together a PDF of the 5 projects with details of cost per square foot, and when the project was completed, and a description of the project, and so forth. So it was a way, it was better than just doing awards. It's certainly not an ideal scenario, but it enabled us to add another layer of, I guess, sophistication to the whole process. So yeah, it was an effort to have probably a more fair evaluation of the design component of the program.
And Wanda, before we wrap things up, I wanted to mention and ask you to share a little bit about the R&D Awards program, which, unlike a kind of traditional design review, the Progressive Architecture Awards or AI Honor Awards, which we publish, or even the Architect 50, which is kind of about firm wellness in general, R&D has a very particular focus, and you're not just looking at aesthetics, right?
No. So we're in our 8th year of the R&D Awards, and we have 3 different categories: application, productivity, and prototype. And it's different in the sense that we receive submissions from anyone who's doing research in any kind of building technology. So that usually includes academics, universities, students, also product manufacturers, and of course designers, engineers. And because it's not just relying on a beauty contest, it's also the judges also consider a process, kind of what kind of research has gone behind the scenes, and kind of work has gone in trying to kind of understand and suss out this technology or product that they're testing out. So the range of submission types that we get range from very cut and clear shop drawings to a very nice detailed progression of this is how we started, this is our idea. These are some of the prototypes that failed, which always appeal to our jurors, actually, is showing failure and what they learned from the failures. And then finally, how this product or project can be applied to a greater good. So we actually are publishing the winners in our July issue. So we're working on that right now. But,
And there's also your selection of jurors your jurors aren't always kind of in the traditional categories, right?
no, they aren't. We have a couple of manufacturer specialists, we have design specialists, and we have usually emerging or younger emerging architects or designers who are kind of on the forefront of technology. And we pick our jurors basically by listening to you guys to see who you're listening to, who you're reading to, who you're going to conferences to see, and who's speaking at these conferences. So these are leaders that we're also trying to follow and use for our jurors.
Cool. So we'll wrap things up. A few thoughts. Just remember, building relationships with editors has great value. Think of our awards programs as possibilities for venues to get yourselves published. Think about web opportunities. And I would say that's pretty much it. Thank you all for coming, and enjoy the rest of the convention here in Chicago.